In the previous episode, we saw that Swamigal finally arrived at Arunachala or Tiruvannamalai. Let us continue from there. After a certain period of Swamigal coming to Arunachala, his uncle and brother Narasimha Josier came to see him. Both were overwhelmed with grief on seeing him in rags with matted hair and a thin, dirty body. They entreated him to return home immediately, but Swamiji refused to leave. Swamiji was handsome, of medium height and fair countenance. His hair hung in short ringlets to the nape of his neck. His voice was soft and his smile was as sweet and sunny as a child. His body would not be at rest for a moment. Even when sitting, he would catch something, put it down, lift it, and then repeat it all over again 100 times. He walked fast, and those following had to run to keep up with him. No sound emanated from his walking or running. It was as if his body was light like a ball. He would seldom bathe, but occasionally pour a pint of oil on himself and roam in the streets with oil still glistening on his head. If he allowed himself to be shaved, he would often stop it abruptly with half of his face or head unshaved and appear in public with equanimity and total disregard for public opinion. He discarded rules and observances of caste, sanctity, prudence, and decency, but always avoided animal food and intoxicants. Seshadri Swamigal moved about in Tiruvannamalai for 40 years, an ascetic with a total disregard for either name or form. He had no home, dependence, property, or any fixed habit or system. He would often conduct himself like a madman and roam around in the heat of the day and stare up at the hot midday sun and at night rest in some nook or deserted hall. He would be delighted when it rained and play in the streams on the street, sit in the water, and only go indoors when the rain had stopped. His acts were dramatic and deeply impressive. He would avoid rich food from wealthy persons but beg for cold gruel at a poor man's house. Sometimes he would take no food at all, and on other occasions consume enough for 10 people. He would eat and drink like one swallowing medicine or one being forcibly fed. Although he did not accept money, he would sometimes receive expensive clothes but immediately transfer them to a poor person or tear the clothes into pieces and garland the tail and horns of a calf. If he was given plain new clothes within a couple of hours, they would reach the state of his original clothes. He wore only a dhoti which would cover his toes and another piece of cloth swathed over his back and shoulders. He would squat anywhere regardless whether it was slush, dirt, or refuse. When sitting, it was always in his favorite swastika asana. Swamigal utilized this strange manner of speech to ward off crowds building up around him. He would go on speaking very fast, without any respite and with no end or meaning. Sometimes, if someone spoke to him, he would reply in Sanskrit, not caring if he was understood or not. He was a tapasvi of very high order. One result of the mantras and sadhanas he practiced from his earliest years was the development of various siddhis and psychic powers. He could tell about the past and future and read minds with ease. With this power, he fulfilled the desires of people by showing visions they wanted to see both in dreams and while being awake. His miraculous touch is said to have cured many of those who came to him with devotion. Often, when people saw him in the streets, they would prostrate before him and he would get near to enable them to touch his feet. But he would never allow bad characters to touch his feet. He would run away, and if they forced themselves on him, he would abuse them or even pelt them with stones. Seeing this, many people did not go near him. But when he knew about the good qualities of a person, he would himself catch their hands and play. He would joke and run with young children. Swamigal's interaction with the world was very strange. A person couldn't take advantage of previous proximity. Every moment was a new moment. People loved him, but some, fearing they might be beaten, were frightened to come close. Generally, he would not call people by name, ask them how they were doing, and suggest they come or question why a person did not come. He would neither talk sarcastically nor show intimacy on account of past connection. He loved music, delighting his devotees with songs. If one asked, he would break forth into melodious song, often drumming rhythms on nearby surfaces. Sometimes he would place his hands on his hips and dance. He was often taken to be lunatic and at times purposely simulated madness. It was difficult to explain his general behavior and impossible to account for the course of his conduct. He was always original and free, an ascetic who maintained a thorough control of his mind and senses up to the end of his life. He was always playing pranks. Suddenly he would laugh without stopping, and those who witnessed this fun would be reduced to hilarity. Sri Seshadri Swamigal blessed his devotees and helped cure their illnesses with his wonderful touch. While roaming the streets of Tiruvannamalai, he would sometimes enter a shop and dump the cash from a cash box or throw the articles from the shops. The shops he entered used to do good business on that day, and so shopkeepers would eagerly await his arrival. To this day, the shops in Tiruvannamalai have his photos as a symbol of good luck and prosperity. Sri Seshadri Swamigal had deep devotion to God, especially in the form of goddess Kamakshi, Lord Ram, and Arunachala. He was a great worshipper of Shakti. In the practice of concentration, he sat steeped in samadhi, oblivious of his body. Seshadri Swamigal would meditate at Draupadi Amman Kovil and Isanyan Mutt and in the corridor surrounding the inner sanctorum at the Durgayamman temple, and he would also do tapas at Kambat Ilayanar, Patala Lingam, and Arunachala Yogeshwarar Mandapam. He did not do tapas on the top of the mountain and instead would go on to the slopes of Arunachala to pray. He often talked about the unique aspects of the Arunachala Kshetra. He would say, "This is the place where Swami and Ambal invite all and confer liberation, and Lord Krishna, leaving aside his Sudarshana Chakra, is playing on his flute. On hearing it, Lord Shiva, who is inside the mountain, comes out and dances." Throughout his life and teachings, Sri Seshadri Swamigal continuously emphasized the glory of Arunachala. "This is Shivalingam. It is enough to worship this. One can become spiritually enlightened and attain liberation." And illustrating the similarity of the Annamalayar Unnamulai temple to Arunachala, he said to those wasting their time discussing worldly affairs and neglecting God, "He spreads his shop in the morning, closes it at night. He does not see Lord Arunachaleshwara. What is the use? Visit the temple, visit the temple, visit the temple." He was ever emphasizing the inestimable value of Giri Pradakshana, instructing one should pray to Lord Arunachaleshwara all the time. In particular, perambulation of the hills should be done on Tuesdays deep devotion will arise. He loved service and by his own example showed it as a noble ideal to live up to. He was regarded with great respect and was thought to be a sage. People would say he is talking God, a divine incarnation, a great yogi, a great siddha. Sri Seshadri Swamigal and Sri Ramana Maharishi. Swamigal and Ramana Maharishi, Seshadri actually arrived at Arunachala 6 years earlier than Ramana Maharishi. Both of them were contemporaries. When Ramana Maharishi came to Tiruvannamalai 7 years after Sri Seshadri Swamigal's arrival, Seshadri Swamigal was immediately aware of the young Swami's state of self abidance and he felt a motherly love for him. Sri Ramana spent his time then immersed in the bliss of the self in the thousand pillared hall in the front portion of the Arunachaleshwara temple. Urchins, not understanding his state, pelted him with stones. Sri Seshadri Swamigal tried to protect the young Swami, who seemed quite unaware of his body and surroundings, but the urchins continued their harassment. To avoid this unwanted attention, Sri Ramana moved into the Patala Lingam, an underground vault in the temple. He remained there in deep meditation for many days, oblivious to the ants, vermin, and mosquitoes who were feasting on him. Sri Seshadri Swami found him there and asked his devotee Venkatachala Mudaliyar to lift his child out. He cleansed Ramana's blood oozing wounds and revealed Ramana as a saint to the world. Locals used to call Sri Swamigal Mother Parvati and Sri Ramana Skanda, Lord Subramanya. Sometimes Sri Seshadri Swamigal, the older by 10 years, would be called Elder Seshadri, Anna, and Sri Ramana as Younger Seshadri, Tambi. One time, a devotee told Sri Ramana that everyone called Seshadri Swamigal a madman. Ramana smilingly replied that there were three madmen in Arunachala. One was Sri Seshadri, the second was Arunachaleshwarar, and the third was himself. Sri Ramana said of Swamiji, Sri Seshadri does not allow people to come near him. Here all are coming. Others would say there were three lingas in Tiruvannamalai. One Lord Arunachala, another Ramana Maharishi, and the third Seshadri Swamigal. Having lived at Arunachala continuously for 40 years and helping all kinds of people, Sri Seshadri decided to finally shed this body. One day in 1928, during the month of Kartigai, he asked a devotee, Shall I build a new house and go away? Meaning, I have completed my task in this Janma. Shall I now depart? At first, the devotee thought the question a prank, but finally, after many days and constant repetition of the question, she answered that he should construct a new house and practice yoga. Sri Seshadri accepted Subbalakshmi's words as representative of Parashakti's approval and satisfied, he replied, Yes, yes, it shall be done. Some days later, his devotees who wanted to photograph him gave him an oil bath and then bathed, dressed, scented, garlanded, and photographed him. Immediately, Seshadri caught a fever. For 40 days, his condition worsened, and on the 41st day, he found the strength to visit Arunachaleshwara one last time. On returning from the temple, he sat down in a puddle of water and refused to change his wet clothes when he got back to the house. Within days, on January 4, 1929, Sri Seshadri Swamigal left his body and Tiruvannamalai was engulfed in sorrow. After preparation, his body was brought out in procession which is said to have been so splendid that the entire stock of camphor in the shops of Tiruvannamalai was exhausted, and all incoming buses were full and overcrowded. The streets were jammed with devotees, and the night seemed like bright day, as it was so brilliantly illuminated by the burning camphor. The air was filled with group singing, devotional songs, and the music of instrument players. It was at Agni Tirtham that Sri Ramana Maharishi joined this procession. Further on, Samadhi was constructed and Sri Swamigal's body interred. That Samadhi tomb is now enshrined within the grounds of Sri Seshadri Ashram on Chengam Road, Tiruvannamalai. His body was not cremated but buried, as is the custom in the case of a saint. It is believed that Ramana Maharishi was present at the place silently observing the rituals till it was completed. There is a saying that one can build 100 temples or visit thousands of shrines, but the samadhi of a saint is indeed very rare and enshrines all the mystic powers of the saint for eternity. Sri Sai Baba of Shirdi spoke about this explicitly when he said that his bones will speak from his tomb. The Samadhi of Saint Sri Raghavendra Swami at Mantralayam is another example of the saint communicating to his devotees even after his attaining Videha Mukti. The Samadhi of Saint Bodhendral reverberates with Ramanama to this day. So also is the Samadhi of Saint Sri Seshadri Swamigal at Tiruvannamalai. Those who meditate in the Samadhi shrine of Sri Swamigal are able to experience the energy of the saint in many ways. The devotees of Arunachala who come in thousands for the Girivalam or circumambulation of the holy hill on Paurnami include a visit to the Samadhi of Sri Seshadri Swami and Sri Ramana in their itinerary and stay blessed. Let me conclude this episode of Sri Seshadri Swamigal with a short sloka which is embossed on his shrine there in Tiruvannamalai. Karuna Sagaram Shantam Arunachalavasinam Sri Seshadri Gurum Vande Brahmi Bhutam Taponidim. Om Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Tat Sat. Thank you.